Hey guys. Alright, so in this video we're going to go over a couple of builds for 3.27 Armor Stacker. Not really much has changed, I would say, from the past couple of leagues, like Settlers and Mercenaries, except we lost the Mercenary, so you basically are just losing like half of your damage, so like 50% less DPS. But it's a little bit more damage in Settlers, so basically the build, if you played it in Settlers, it's going to be pretty similar to that without um, using any of the new, how would you say, tools and that kind of stuff. There's a couple of new things, so we can use the Whisper Amulet on a lower budget for a little bit more build power, maybe you could say. But anyways, we'll get into the builds. I'll explain all four of them. I've made four so far, and this time around I'm going to be trying Mobilytics. So there's going to be, I'm going to go over all four of these sort of in this video. So there'll be timestamps for each one. If you are, interested in only that one, go check that one out. But anyways, I'm gonna try this league, see how it goes with using Mobilytics. Normally I actually make everything in a Google Doc, but it gets really messy, as you can see, because I end up making just like tons of POBs and everything just it kind of just it's just too much, right? And so I think hopefully using Mobilytics I'll be able to organize my stuff a little bit better, and because in PoB2 and that kind of stuff I've been using it and it's been working pretty good, so I'm going to try that with the Armor Stacker builds for this league and see how it goes. Okay, so first of all, I think we'll start off with this one here. This is the Leaguestart that I usually do. I'm going to warn you guys that this one is probably not super good because it's very specialized for how I play. So it basically just gets me into heist and allows me to farm up currency on a very low budget, so I can go and build one of the other builds I want to play. I have never tested rushing the Atlas with this. You probably will get hard stuck in yellow maps with this setup because it's not like super high DPS. I mean, even though we do have some pretty good DPS, I've never pushed it past yellow maps. Usually at that point I am swapping over to a Armor Stacker build, so there is sort of a warning there. But this is basically what I'm doing, and it does work pretty good. Nothing has really changed from this league, except we get extra stuff from the graphs and probably easy 5 links. Anyways, so the whole setup is basically we're just going to be using Smite. You can also run a Molten Strike setup. I've run Molten Strike in one of the leagues I did Molten Strike, another league I did Smite. They both work pretty good. Roughly about the same kind of DPS, you could say. But this build, so let's take a look at the kind of build. The build variants are basically just snapshots of the character as I leveled. And let's take a look first just at sort of what I usually finish the build with. So basically, it's just using the Hion's Fury because these are pretty decent DPS. You can see like flat damage. We also get some increased damage from frenzy charges, and so it overall it's super cheap because these are like 1 chaos items and they give you quite a lot of DPS. Like I think we're at like 1 million DPS alone just with this like pretty basic setup. Passive tree is there's not really much to say here, guys, but you can go into block and that kind of stuff for a little bit more defense, but overall you're like not super tanky. You can see only like 22k max hit, 10k fizz, and like 3k life, right? So it's not like super tanky, it's not super high DPS, but it's enough to kind of get the job done in heist, and that's why I kind of do it. In the POB, it's probably better if you are going to actually try this to actually use the POB. So if we go and open this in POB, you can use these loadouts over here, and it's the same loadouts as in Mobilytics. So if you'd like to view this better, this is kind of what I do. Scion starting off is a little bit awkward until we kind of get around to this area here, and then we actually can start doing some damage. Like once you have this set up, you're actually basically just one-tapping mobs. It's kind of insane. And the skills I like to use to start off with, first of all, is just Spectral Throw. This actually does pretty good damage, so I'm pretty much using this all the way until I get Blade Trap, because Blade Trap just does seem to do quite a bit more damage. I don't know, I like it. You can continue on with Spectral Throw or with Shattering Steel if you like that, and at some point I'll try to find a Vaal Smite either by running a Vaal side area, or there is that Corruption Chamber somewhere in Act 2, I believe. You can go and try to use that. Anyways, but you don't really need this, but this is just so I'm starting to level up my Smite, because at some point we are going to sort of, start getting some more passives and that kind of stuff for our Blade Trap. And at the same time, our Smite is going to start doing a little more damage. And somewhere around, like, I don't know, I would say like level 40-ish. I think it's like level 42. You can actually swap to using Smite as a main skill. Just something like this, pretty much. But yeah, it's actually pretty good. I mean, I thought it was pretty good at least. Okay, for Molten Strike, the main difference over here is that you're going to be taking point blank and the projectile mastery here for less projectile duration. So that kind of does scale your Molten Strike hits, but you know, it's pretty good, except that it's, if you take a look at the Smite versus Molten Strike, it's almost about the same DPS. Molten Strike is a little bit more, but then you also have to wait for returns and all this kind of stuff, and Smite is just instant, right? So maybe Smite might actually feel a little bit better in Heist, especially with the Vol Smite in Heist. Like when you're opening a door, when you're trying to escape and there's like, you know, 100 mobs on the screen, you just push Vol Smite and everything dies. So that's why I kind of like the Smite setup a little bit better. Okay, so moving on to the build that I usually swap over to. This is the Doryani's prototype setup for Scion. Now this actually didn't even change at all from Settlers or Mercenary League, because I pretty much was wearing the Doryani's prototype the whole time. A lot of people put it on the Mercenary, but I was kind of slow to swap over. So you can kind of see from the, what do you call it, the build diary, if it even loads, that my Mercenary basically was just giving me lucky hit damage, which I believe we can probably get somehow in the next league with one of the rune graphs. We'll see how that goes. And endurance charges, pretty much. That's pretty much it. So that's all the Merc was doing for me at this point. And yeah, this works pretty good, except that it's a Doryani's prototype build. So if you've never played one of these, it's going to be a little bit weird, because you might just randomly get one shot by lightning degen, because lightning degen is like the downside to playing this build. You get really, really cheap, easy damage from the Doryani's prototype because you're scaling the negative damage. I mean, the negative resistance. I'm pretty sure all you guys are familiar with that from the Mercenaries League, how powerful that is. But the downside is you are just a little bit kind of weak. But you get used to it. Like, I'm totally fine playing with it. And I actually leveled all the way to 100. Pretty much every league, I leveled to 100 in Simulacrum wearing Doryani's prototype. So I actually just don't die on the build. I'm just kind of used to playing it. But if you're not used to playing it, you might not like it. Like, a lot of people who play it, just like, I'm never doing this again, right? So a little warning, it's not super good in a lot of content, because there's this mana siphoner modifier. I'm sure you guys have seen it before, the blue kind of donut on mobs that burns mana. That's a lightning degen, and that's going to one-shot you. So in general, it's only really good, I would say, in like simulacrums or some kind of specialized content like boss rushing, or I don't know, maybe some kind of boss that doesn't do lightning degen. Then it's like, okay, but even so, there's probably a better specialized build to do that, to do that, right? Anyways, but I just like playing this because I enjoy playing Armour Stacker. I like the build, so this is why I'm doing it. Okay, so to quickly cover the build, how it works. So it's the Doryani's prototype build. So obviously we want to scale our or reduce our lightning resistance to a negative value. So the way we do that is, first of all, we're going to be using melding. So we have melding in the flesh. This is up to -80 max res. We're not going to have any lightning res on any of our gear. So that means we're going to have, what, -60, I think, by the time we finish the campaign. And then after that, there is some other items we can use, like the Thread of Hope. That's going to give us -20. We do actually need one of these anyways to pick up the Glancing Blows. So that's perfect. And the rest of the negative lightning resistance we're going to be getting is going to be from reflected jewelry that you can find with like -100 lightning resistance and that kind of stuff. So these are not very hard to find, and it's actually not even required, because of the like diminishing returns you get on damage from negative resistances. So going from like 0 resistance to -100 is a massive damage increase. But then going from, going to -100 to -150 is still pretty big, but not as impactful. Then going from -150 to -200 is not, it's not super huge, right? I mean, it's still some DPS increase, but so I wouldn't really be too concerned about that, as long as you're at like -100 or -150-ish. That's like totally fine. But if you can, go all the way up to -200. Okay, so aside from that, Some of the other items we're going to be using, you can choose to use Eternal Struggle or the Whispers of Infinity. The setup is going to be a little bit different. Mainly, you just put the Grace gem in your March of the Legion, and you're going to have to cast it every maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, depending on what kind of, how much like duration you want to put on, spend on, invest into the blessing. But you're going to have to self-cast your Grace to keep up to the upkeep the buff. The upside to this is that you are going to get a free aura, so you get to run the haste aura. So basically, you're going to be moving faster, attacking faster. It's going to be really good. Really nice to have haste aura, but you do have to cast the divine blessing. So some people don't like that, but this is also probably going to be cheaper because these eternal struggles can be very expensive. And the only downside I would say to using whispers is it is going to be a little bit harder to get your 90 max res, because the way we get our 90 max res is with Aegis Aurora, we get +5 here, and then we have a Purity of Ice that gives us plus, what do you call it, max cold res, which we then scale with some aura effect, and then we get the rest from melding, basically. So we need a certain amount of aura effect to get 90 max res with our Purity, and we get a little bit of that from the Eternal Struggle. So losing that little bit is actually enough to put you all the way down to 89 max res, which isn't really the end of the world, and you can fix that by getting 90 max res on a jewel or something like that, right? But that's something to think about. If you're going to be using this amulet, it's going to be a little bit harder to get that 90 max res. Okay, as for the rest of the gear, Soul Ascension is probably still going to be best in slot for Simulacrum farming, just because of the amount of attack speed you get from it is pretty crazy. And the rest of the stuff is pretty much kind of self-explanatory. You can use String of Servitude, or I think last league I was using, just see what I was using here. I had mana reservation issues, so I was using the Archon's Tools belt. This is one of the newer belts from Mercenaries League, but this just gives you a bunch of mana reservation. So if you have mana reservation problems, then just use this. And we are using some forbidden jewels here, but these aren't required. And I think in the Mercenaries League, I just didn't even bother. I didn't even bother with them at all. So, some of those things aren't really needed. But anyways, so that's the belt. And for a like cheaper setup, this is usually what I start on day 2 or day 3. Just because, you know, I mean, finding a Soul Ascension and crafting a rare helmet like this on day 2 or 3 is a little bit expensive. So I start off like this, with the Alpha's Howl and Shaper's Touch. We need 3 large clusters. These are kind of the same as last league, but we want one with a Storm Drinker for Lightning Leech, and then we also just want some Mana Leech with Fuel to Fight. And then if you get Martial Prowess, it's nice because you need a little bit of accuracy, but then also you can get some nodes with block, like the Prodigious Defense, or I think that's one, yeah, that's one that gives you like 4 block and 4 spell block, so those are pretty nice to get. And then all of your small jewels are just introspection, pretty much. So that is it. Pretty simple, but it is kind of annoying getting all the jewels. The flasks, not really much to say here. For the tincture, the rage tincture, still best in slot for just getting instant rage really quickly, as like whenever you need it. So I like this one a lot. But yeah, that's the build. Let's go over to the next builds real quick. And I will be making build diaries for 3.27. So I've left the ones from Mercenaries League here for reference. You can kind of see what I was doing. But yeah, we'll be making new ones for the next league. Okay, so the next 2 builds we're going to go over is going to be more endgame builds. So we have over here, this is the Molten Strike Valdo Farmer. And let's take a look at the complete endgame version, about 7 billion DPS with perfect items. If we compare this to last league, in Mercenaries, we were at 20 billion. All right, so we did lose quite a bit of damage. This is basically just because we lost the Merc, right? But so we are going to lose quite a lot of damage, but still we will be able to do quite a lot of harder Valdo maps. Like 7 billion is enough to do the Blasted Monolith. Probably Remote Lair Desert Spring is going to be probably impossible to do unless there is like a lot more like damage we can get from somewhere else. But you still will be able to do those harder maps once you do have very good gear, I think. And the actual build setup just doesn't really change that much, except there is a couple of things we want to change. So since we're not using Doryani's prototype to get a lot of negative lightning resistance on the target, we want to get lightning exposure into the build. So we're going to do that with our gloves. On the gloves, normally I would have Mark Effect, or last league we had Mark Effect, but this league for the Eldritch Implicit, we want to have the lightning exposure. It's going to be, it's a little bit more damage than Mark Effect. And then as for your gem links, there is one link that we change. Let's see if we can find it here. Oh no, the links don't change. Never mind. Okay, so this is the setup over here, pretty much. The only thing that really changes is the way you craft your gloves. The implicit's going to be the lightning exposure. And I think actually, aside from that, everything else is exactly the same. So pretty nice that we don't have to change that much gear. There might be some things we change up with the Ascendancy. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can get one of the new Ascendancies, but I haven't really added any of those. Eventually, we can try, maybe once I start playing around with the build in Endgame, we'll try some of those things out. But until then, we'll just leave it without any of those in the build. Okay, so quickly go over the variants. There's 3 variants here, 3 passive voices variant, the 1 passive voices variant, and then the Giga version, which is basically everything is perfect. All right, so take a look at some of these. The POBs are also all linked over here, so you can go check them out. And let's go over to the next one. The next version this is the Smite Aegis build that was very popular in Mercenaries League. This is probably one of the more popular versions of the Scion Armour Stacker because it's made more for all content. It's pretty nice because you're using Aegis, right? So you have Aegis Aurora. So this basically means you're just never gonna die. Like there's not really much that's gonna kill you unless you run into something that one-shots you, which is pretty hard because this build can get all the way up to like almost 400k max hit with your guard skills. So extremely tanky, extremely good recovery, and quite a lot of damage. Close to 1 billion DPS, like, you know, on this version. So it's going to be pretty good, I think. I mean, not as good as in Settlers League, or not Settlers, Mercenaries League, but it's still going to be a very good build. And probably still doing like double or triple the DPS of most normal endgame builds, right? Anyways, so that's the setup, guys. Not really much has changed from Settlers, so to quickly go over the differences, the main thing is the gloves as well. Here we're going to be doing the lightning exposure on the gloves, and then also for your gem, it's I put lightning penetration in here because there's like not really much else to put in here, right? So you could swap this out. There's a couple of other options that might be better depending on the situation, but overall lightning penetration is kind of good in a lot of different scenarios, so I just left it in. Okay, so that is the setup, guys. You can go check out the different POBs over here. And if you notice that the armor that I think I want to recommend to people next league is going to be a necrotic armor. I think because we are going to be losing a lot of damage. Overall, it's might be a better choice to use the necrotic. I mean, obviously, if you just don't really care about damage as much, you can still go for a Regalia and get like another 2,000 extra ES. Be a little bit tankier, but that's kind of up to you. Both of them will work good, although the necrotic is, I think, might be a little better because we did lose 50% of our DPS from last league. So, anyways, so that's probably what I'll start using, I think, just to kind of make up for the loss of DPS. Okay, guys, so that's pretty much it for this kind of pre-league launch video explanation. I will go into these builds a little bit more in detail once the league is underway. So make sure you favorite the build so you can follow the progress for the builds. If I make any updates, so you know when to go and check and get the latest update. Like I said, I will be making build diaries. I'll probably just kind of remove these eventually and then change these to the next league diaries when I make them. And of course, any build updates will all come over here into this Mobilytics page. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, oh yeah, favorite the build for me, guys. It really helps me out, and it also helps you get the latest version. Okay, so that'll be it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Wish you good luck in the new league. Don't get baited, and I'll see you next time.